like a little mommy's room downstairs. We're just trying to think of how we're going to put, probably just going to live stream from the live stream and then just connect it up to a TV. Just for you done it, we just got to figure out some dynamics before we can do that. Okay, so that's on the agenda. Alright, we'll start with the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who gives the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel, and to all the peoples through his Son Yeshua the Messiah our Lord. Amen. Alright, last week you are in the book of Judges, Shoftim. What did we discuss last week? What, who, how? Anybody?
Gideon was being summoned with thistles and thorns.
Gideon and his Hallel. Okay? So as with the book of Judges, you'll find that we will have touched on what they call major judges and minor judges. Okay? The same way in your Bible, you will get your Bible separated. Your Old Testament is separated between major prophets and minor prophets. What's the difference? Size of the book. Okay, so if I'm learning a lot about Gideon, God gives me 3 chapters about Gideon, but you'll touch on a guy who gets 3 sentences. Right, that's all we know about him. Maybe a verse or 2, and they call him a minor judge clearly because we don't have that much detail about him. Okay, but this is obviously spanning a time in the history, and God is trying to give you a summation of what the cycle of the people was, what they were doing, and if you remember correctly, it was in a time, what is the buzz verse in the entire book of Shoftim in Judges? We had a time when there was no king, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. Okay? So somehow we're building up to the time when they're really going to go, even though they were forewarned about it, to the time of kings. To the time when they just realize this whole thing is not working out, we don't understand things are not going in, and because of the cycle, because we're doing everything according to the way we view things. Sound familiar today? Everybody does what's right according to their own eyes. And when you get enough of a group of people that do it in the same way, what do we call that? A denomination. Think about it. Think about it. You've got them in Judaism and you've got them in Christianity. We like the way this group interprets, we like the way this group acts, we like the way they do this because of X, Y, and Z. So we create a group, and that group starts to expand. Okay? And now you start to understand, because I look at verses slightly differently, then all of a sudden we have a tendency to build our wall against our neighbor and go, you do it that way, I'll do it this way, and then we create a separation in the body, which is not the way it's supposed to be. Alright? Understand, it happens quickly. We're getting to a case where we want to do it our way. Let me just touch on this very quickly. Guys, be very, 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 very careful. Okay? Not only will it create factionalism, where you're going to find yourself separated into little smaller bodies until eventually you become so small and isolated you're no good to anyone. That is not how the body works. Okay? Don't get to the place where you want to do it your way all the time, or where you don't even concede to anybody else. When you get to the place where you go, you do it your way, I do it my way, and you know, we can still be friends, but that's them and this is us. Obviously, we have issues where if it goes against Scripture, we can have that discussion. What is the biggest problem we have in, call it Hebraic roots, call it Messianics, call it whatever? What do we have in our group today? What is the biggest problem? I'm not talking about our group, I'm talking about this whole coming back to Torah movement. Think about it.
Not very popular.
Alright, well,
It's outcast.
Generally, a lot of people have been hurt by churches and then they leave. Okay, so they come in with a sore spirit, they come in with a sore heart, and they normally bear a grudge. Okay, about where they come from. It doesn't matter whether it's Reformed Judaism or whether it's Christianity. They separate. What else? Huh? Well, it's going to create division anyway, but what are the biggest problems? Don't worry, it's just right. Okay, there's a tendency for us, because we start to know stuff and start to see things differently, there's a tendency to be arrogant. Number one, we know more than you, just sit down and keep quiet and we will show you how it's done. Okay, last time I checked, Yeshua knew more than anybody, and he never ran around telling people that. Okay? The second thing, well, you brought it up, but not in the slightly context that I was going. Alright? The next thing I'm seeing is something that I'm going to coin a term, is Pharisaism. When we all have very strong opinions about certain things that are additions to Torah, and because we want our opinions to be walked out, we make it Torah. You hear what I'm saying? You prefer to worship on a Tuesday because Scripture says God blessed Tuesday twice, so therefore everybody else has to worship on a Tuesday. There is nowhere in Torah where it says you have to get together on the Holy Congregation because it's Tuesday. Okay? So we're getting to a place, because this thing is a fairly new sort of idea, that we take our perceptions and our understandings and we want to impose it on other people. Be careful, guys. You get stuck into a motif where you get groups of people that will do it a specific way. Let's use the Shema for instance. If you've ever been into in an Orthodox shul or in some Messianic groups, or in other Messianic groups, when they sing the Shema, which they normally do every Shabbat, okay, a lot of them will face Jerusalem. Which way is Jerusalem? That way. Right. So that when we face Jerusalem, I can say the Shema. We have biblical evidence for that Daniel faced Jerusalem when he prayed, but he was praying from Babylon. Okay, but does it say anywhere in Torah that you need to face Jerusalem when you say the Shema? No. Does it benefit you? Maybe personally, if you're inclined to that, you don't have a problem. But if someone doesn't face north, does that make them wrong? No. Does that make them not your brother or your sister, or does it make them they don't do it this way? No. Okay, guys. Just a fair warning. It's something that I've been thinking about, something that I've been praying about for the last couple of weeks. Don't let your perception on something come in, and even though you might have a valid point for why it works for you, if it is not found in God's Word, and granted, you're not going to find everything in God's Word, okay? But you will know enough about the character of God to be able to understand whether He thinks it's a good idea or a bad idea. But don't take something that is Torah or something and nullify it, and don't take something that is not Torah and magnify it. Okay? With me? Plot that in the back of your mind. If you catch yourself doing it, please take a step back. If you see other people do it, be patient. And just maybe point it out and say, listen, maybe you're taking this a little too seriously. Okay? Alright, happy. So, back to Gideon. Gideon was very grumpy, and now we're going to go into Gideon dies. And we learn about a guy called Abimelech. What does Abimelech mean?
My dad, king.
Right. My father, king. Okay? Avi, like we said before, Abimelech. Okay. We're actually looking at 3 Hebrew words. You could probably say, if you translate it, it's going to go 4 into English. Okay, Av is father. Abraham, father of many nations. This little okie over here tells you relationship. It's mine, it's to me, my father. Okay, and Melech is king. It's ironic. Who's his dad? Who's Abimelech's father? Gideon. Right. And what did they say? Gideon, you will be our king. And he said, He said, no, God will be your king. So depending on how you look at this, yeah, but it comes in the same group. He's seen as the son of. Okay, even it says here, Abimelech the son of Jerubbaal went to Shechem, verse 1. Okay, Jerubbaal is obviously the name they gave to him. That means he will contest against Baal. Okay, so he comes in and he says, Jerubbaal, Gideon says, no way, God is your king. And he says, Abimelech is, my father is king. Now you could take that from Gideon's perspective, and this would be a name of praise. Who was Gideon's king? There's a lovely Jewish prayer called Avinu Melkeinu. Avinu, father to us. Melkeinu, king to us. Okay, it's a corporate prayer. Alright, we play it sometimes. And you make a declaration. That is, he is king, we are his servants. He is the creator, we are the creators. He is our father, we are his sons. Okay? So we understand relationship-wise what that means. Although my father might be my dad, if he's still the king of a country, I need to afford him certain respect. And if he's the king of everything, it doesn't matter how much authority I have here, I could be in charge of a nation. We still bow down to the king of it all. Alright? So in the time of Judges, he's getting there, we've got this, my father is king. Could be seen. Is this the first time we see this name pop up in scripture? No, we see it before. Where else did we see it before? Abraham has a chat with a guy called Abimelech. Okay? Abimelech. Right? If New Translation, they normally change the verb to a ba. Okay? Abi. Alright? Abimelech. So he has a discussion with him. What was the story there, Sean?
It was, they were going to Egypt, and then he told Sarah to not tell the man that he was his wife, but his sister. And then Abimelech found out that his wife took them, that Sarah is actually Abraham's wife.
Right. If you guys are looking for a phrase, it's Genesis 20. And another Abimelech. Okay, we don't think it's the same one. Abimelech seems to be more of a title at that time for the kings of the Philistines, the kings of Gerar. And we see in chapter 26, Isaac has a similar sort of conversation with Abimelech. Okay, Genesis 20 and 26. Alright, so we've already got this guy who's the king of Philistine. And now we've got the same title of what should declare who is God and who is king being used again, probably more in line by the time we see the story with the first mention of Abimelech trying again with Genesis. Man authority. It's about him. Okay? Are you with me? Alright. Abimelech the son of Jerubbaal went to Shechem. Okay, Shechem. Oh, okay, yeah, it could be. Give me a story. What else happened in Shechem? Alright, let me do this. Let me do this. Alright. We've got pretty colors. Alright, we've got Tam Shechem. Okay. So first we have the story of the sons who was part of Shechem. Go back. Genesis 1. Go back, work with me. Genesis 1.
Shechem named after the son. Shechem the son.
Right. And they were called the sons of which group? Sons of Hamor. Okay, so we've got the Shechemites, and remember, what sort of flavor did they leave in the Shechemites' mouth? Not such a good one, right? They took something that was supposed to be a covenant and something sacred to God, and they used it into a plan to commit murder. Who were the two guys who did that? Simeon and Levi went and they said, that's it, our sister needs to be avenged. Her name? Dinah. Right. So Dinah gets captured, she gets kept, and Shechem is like, this is the one for me, I need to keep it, it's all very exciting. And then they say, come, give it to me as my wife, but you've had it for a couple of days, but this is not the way we do things. Why don't you let it go? We'll talk about it. And then they're like, negotiate, and then Shimon and Levi come up with a plan. No, listen to my daddy for a little bit. You know what? If all of your men are circumcised, you have less of a problem. You see, because we're a peculiar people with a covenantal promise. And then they go back and then he convinces everyone there that circumcision is a good idea. How does he convince them?
You want our sister? You got to circumcise everything.
How do they?
Helping the woman in the livestock.
Surely all that is theirs will become ours. Boy, are we talking about paupers here? Or are we talking about millionaires? Right, we can get married into that family. Their wealth is going to become our wealth, and it's going to be great. So they run around and they circumcise everybody, and Shimon and Levi says, "Thank you very much." And they came in and they killed every male. Why? What does Scripture tell us about what happened after circumcision?
They're still a while.
Yeah, they're a little sore. For those of you guys that have done it, you understand a little bit. You get band-aids and all that stuff. You do that in Flintstones. All right? You deal with it, you're lying down, and it says that they couldn't even lift a sword. They couldn't even fight back. So it was literally two guys walking along, and that's the last time you mess with our sister. And then becomes bigger problems. But because of that, we enter up into something else. Something else happens in Shechem. There's a covenant that gets established at Shechem. Now, why is that important? Because later in Torah, God will bring them to a place where they get to shout blessing and curses between the two. Can you give me the mountains? Ebal and Gerizim. Okay? And how do we know which one's which? Just by looking at it? No. How do I know? How do I know? Looking at it.
I think the Zim is actually beautiful.
Right. Gerizim is beautiful. And it just happens to be on the left side of Shechem. Ebal? Okay? Ebal literally means holy. Okay? There's not that much growing on the top. It seems to be pretty barren. But it just happens to be on the right of Shechem. So when they stood in between the place where Abraham makes covenant, and he establishes the place, and they shout in blessings and curses between the two, coming in and having say, this is what's going to happen when you break covenant. Don't you think it's rather interesting that this town is a place now where you're going to talk about a story where people again are forgetting about who God is and start to lean towards what the Shechemites represent instead of what God represents. Guys, everything here has history. You notice when you go to Israel, you can't throw a stone with stopping and you're having to talk about something that happened there. In places, certain places, you will have 4, 5, 6, 7 different stories that all happen in the same region. It doesn't happen there just because it's a small country. I believe God is trying to tell you something. Okay? So something that was supposed to be a sacred covenant through the sign of the covenant led them to another covenant, who led them to that covenant of blessings and curses being pushed in between the two, and now we're going to have rebellion against that covenant in the same place. Set the stage, okay? And that's just all this one. Okay. So Abimelech the son of Jerubbaal went to Shechem to his mother's brothers and spoke with them and with the whole clan of his maternal grandfather. He said, please ask the men of Shechem, which is better for you, that the 70 sons of Jerubbaal rule over you, or that one person will rule over you. And remember that I am your blood relative. The mother's brothers spoke to all the men of Shechem and said all this about them. Sound familiar? They went out and then they spoke to all the men of Shechem. You're going to make a covenant, circumcision. Align yourself with a people or with a person. His mother's brothers spoke to the men of Shechem and said this all about them so that they followed their feelings and supported Abimelech. Please pause. There's something that we need to recognize as people who need to go from immature to mature believers is that you cannot and must not take your feelings as a confirmation all the time. How do I know the scripture? Joshua would never have done anything. Moses would not have done anything. Time and time and time again. Yeshua was fearful, sitting in the Garden of Gethsemane, saying, if there is any other way. He says, not my will, but yours will be done. Too many times we get stuck in a position and we go, I just don't feel right. I'm not convicted enough. It doesn't give me peace. And we use our emotions to nullify what the Word of God has said or nullify what God Himself has said. Do not get stuck in that trap. It says, do not be afraid. The reason He says, be bold and courageous, is because you are afraid. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it. Sometimes you will feel anger come up, and it won't be from God, it will be from you. Sometimes you will feel nerves. It's okay. You need to learn to recognize whether it's you or him. Sometimes the enemy is going to get in there and it's going to make you fearful. And if I go, that's a sign for me that I shouldn't, then we make a mistake. Our kids, in many cases, would never go to school. Think about that first day. You leave them. They feel alone, they feel nervous, they feel abandoned. Is it a good thing for them to go to school? Absolutely, because if they don't, they're not going to be prepared. You thought you were going to get out of it. You're not going to prepare them. They have to learn to read, they have to learn to write, they have to learn about stuff so they can be prepared to be able to go out. I would be doing my children an injustice. But if I left it up to their feelings, they would never leave. Right? There are normal things. Times we will do things that might seem counterintuitive to what our emotions are telling us. A mature believer takes time to take stock. Don't go according to what your emotions tell you. Sometimes it's the emotions that are going to lead you astray. Silly example. But he makes you feel so alive. But you're married. But I just feel. You can feel as much as you want. I'm not going to change God's word. And so we go on. Alright? And sorry, where am I? Verse 4. Alright. They argued after all, he's our brother. They also gave him 70 pieces of silver from the temple of Baal Rit. Wait. Let me finish the sentence and come back to that. And he used these to pay for good for nothing thugs to follow him. Okay, silver is a representation biblically of what? Redemption. You redeem something with silver. Your sons of Israel will be redeemed with so many shekels of silver, right? Okay, so something that is supposed to redeem, to bring people into the kingdom, is now being used to gather up against or make the kingdom. God's kingdom or Abimelech's? Abimelech. So we've got a counterfeit between who is king here. Number one. Number two, 70. What does 70 represent? The Sanhedrin. Okay, what is the Sanhedrin supposed to do? Judge according to what statutes? Against what God has said. So 70 who are supposed to understand God has said, or 70 pieces of redemption. That which comes from God to redeem in wisdom is now going to be used to establish a fake king's inheritance or establish his kingdom using tools. Alright? He took it from a place called Baal Beit. What does Baal Beit mean? Right, Lord of the Covenant. Okay? So we take it from our temple's coffers and we're saying, okay, who are we aligning ourselves with here? And to which covenant? Did they not, again, swear allegiance to Gideon? In a sense, and he said, God, look at me, go to God. They're sitting in Shechem. Should they not be focusing on Gerizim and Ebal, which surrounds them, and talk to them about which covenant they should belong to? You know, when Scripture says, you know, things like, I will call the mountains and the trees and that as witnesses against you. Yeah. A couple of generations ago, you had Moses standing over there saying, are you guys going to do this or not? This land is being established by God for you. Because of a guy called Abraham who set up an altar in Shechem, just outside the city, and he asked God to look after him. And here we are, plotting someone's demise, or a few people's demise, using tools and understanding that was supposed to be used, or should be used in his kingdom. He went back to his father's house in Ophrah and killed his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 of them on a single rock, except for Yotam, Jerubbaal's youngest son, who stayed alive because he hid himself. So he takes all these guys that go, they slaughter them all, basically one piece of silver for a son. So which kingdom are you redeeming for? Alright? Except for one guy, which is interesting. What is the meaning of Yotam?
God is perfect.
Yeah, God is perfect. Right? All the men of Shechem and Beit Millo got together and went and made Abimelech king at the oak by the pot pillar in Shechem. Are you starting to get a good understanding that this is all pagan and good things? When they told this to Yotam, he went and he stood on top of Mount Gerizim and shouted. What should be coming from Mount Gerizim? Blessings or curses? I don't believe any one of you. Not one of you are opening up the Bible. So they shouted from Gerizim and they shouted blessings? Sorry? You just cited the reference and now you want to argue with me. Yeah, look at the reference. What is it? Deuteronomy?
11 verse 29.
Deuteronomy 11 verse 29. Then back up, Shawnees, just to make sure you're all on the same page.
Now it shall be when the Lord your God has brought you into the land you go to possess, that you shall put the blessings on Mount Gerizim and the curses on Mount Ebal.
So, where did everyone shout to them?
Oh, so they were shouting.
I don't know what you're talking about, Shawnees. You'll have to find out. Alright. Once the trees went out to choose, popular and from the Mount Gerizim, he shouted, listen to me, you leaders of Shechem, then God will listen to you. Once the trees went out to choose the king to rule over them, and they said to the olive tree, rule over us. But the olive tree replied, am I supposed to leave my oil, which is used to honor both God and humanity, just to go hold sway over the trees? Okay, so again, something that I thought you understood. You've got, he goes into the parable about the olive, and he goes, what I have is used to honor God and the God and who? Both honor God and humanity. So, God and man. How does an olive tree do that? Normally through its oil. Okay? We've got a couple of interesting pleasure because an olive tree is used as a picture for the nation of Israel in many of the scriptures. Okay? So he goes up and he says, using the olive, and where do we get the oil from in olive tree? You know? In the seed, mainly in the seed. Okay, so what they do is they take it, and then they take a bag out, and they will throw all the olives in what they call a yam. It's a big stone basin, and then they got a millstone, which is a nice big rock, normally pulled by a donkey, and then it runs around crushing it. Normally that stone is made out of basalt, something really hard and heavy, because they have to crush the seed that's inside of it, because that holds 60% of the oil inside. Okay? So once I crush that, I roll over that a few times, I take what I can and I put them in little sacks, and then I start packing them on top of each other, and then it starts to ooze down into a little basin. That's what we call extra virgin olive oil, the first pressing. Okay? Thereafter, I will add something called a Hebrew Gethsemane. Gad Shemen. A Gad Shemen is a stone. And I would take the stone and I would add it on, normally using a lever of sorts, to give it another press. Okay? How many times do I press? 3 times. Alright? Each time lowering the grade of the oil, but I'm using it for different purposes. The first pressing is used for who? Or for what? Right. For anything that needs anointing. And what do I anoint? Okay? Things that are set apart to be kadosh. Okay? The menorah, the lampstand, the table of showbread, the basin, all of those things that are set apart for him and that use alone. So with that in mind, what else do I use it for? Anointing people, but which people? Kings, priests. Okay? Like David. David was anointed with the same type of oil that you would use to dedicate something to God's use forever. Okay? So when they're anointed, just in saying that should tell you something. If something is kadosh, kadosh is holy. Okay? It means it's set apart. I will not use that cup for anything common, anything normal. That will only be used in God's house for God's purpose. Okay, fast forward. What does the term Mashiach mean? Anointed one. Okay, so when he's praying in the garden of Gad Shemani, the place of the olive press, or oil press, he's already telling you about the Mashiach being pressed, so that his anointing would come out. Why? Because you need to be set apart for the kingdom as well. You with me? Okay. So for God and for man, we understood the God part, right? The man part is the lower grade of oil and also the other stuff. I use and I take the pulp and I make soaps out of it. I make it animal fodder. I use the lowest grade of oil to burn in my lamps at home. Okay, the first pressing gets used in the menorah, in the tabernacle or the temple. Okay, so everything else sort of gets, as it gets more pressed out, I use it to help the people around me. Okay? So the olive tree says, please, I'm being used to please God and man, and you want me just to look after trees. What's the point? What is the olive tree's perception? My focus is on what I was made for, to please my Creator. Are you with me? Okay, he carries on with the same parable. Okay, I'm thinking on verse 10. Verse 10. So the trees said to the fig tree, you come and rule over us. But the fig tree replied, am I supposed to leave my sweetness and my good fruit just to go and hold sway over the trees? Fig tree. Sweetness. Not sweetness. Sweetness. And? Sweetness and what?
Good fruit.
And fruit. Good fruit. Again, also used as an image of the national vision. Tell me about what they understood the fig tree represented, besides Israel. What? Yeah, represent the Torah, but how? The sweetness. Right. Would any of you rather prefer to go study outside on a big bush tree that's not nice than sitting in here? It's okay, we can say. Right? So what they would do is the Talmidim would go out and they would sit underneath the fig trees and they would have discussions and all the rest of it, and then they would read or recite Torah. And the sweet smell would remind them about the word that says, may your word be as sweet as honey in my mouth. So the fig tree, the sweetness that it represented was the smell, and that spoke about God's instruction. And the good fruit that comes from following God's instruction is not only good for you, for the body to eat, but it will also bring you life. Fast forward to Yeshua, cursing of the fig tree. Where else do we see the fig tree being used in Torah? Oh, not yet, Torah. No. Torah. I said, right. Adam and Eve thought it was a good idea to make clothes out of fig leaves. You see, his instruction was not to do X, Y, and Z, and they took it and they manipulated it a little bit and then they covered up their nakedness. In Hebrew, nakedness means shame. And the fact that they were naked was just one of those funny things. Okay? So to cover their shame, they tried to bring in a sweet smell, but instead of life, they actually brought in death. Okay, next parable. Thank you, sir. So the tree said to the grapevine, you come rule over us. But the grapevine replied, am I supposed to leave my wine, which gives cheer to God and humanity, just to go and hold sway over the trees? So, the vine, Israel again. This guy is like a rabbi. Okay? Or he says, leave my wine, which is supposed to help who? Again, he brings it back to God and humanity. God and man. What does wine represent? Abundance, joy. Okay? The psalmist says, may my cup overfloweth. You think he was talking about water? No. Talking about wine, and he says that may God give me the joy and the abundance of life. How do I get joy and abundance from life? Let's go back and discuss things about what does Yeshua say about the vine?
He is the vine.
He is the vine, and we are the... so here we have the Moshiach, again, the anointed one. He is the vine. The one man Israel. You guys understand when I say one man Israel? Okay, in Tanakh you see this funny play. You know Tanakh means Old Testament. You see Abraham do something. Abraham went down into Egypt. Abraham lied a little bit. What did he lie about? He lied about his sister. Which is kind of like a half lie because she was his half sister. And what happened?
Well, the Pharaoh decided that he wanted to have
Pharaoh thought, like a sticky, I'll take you and I'll make you mine. But before he did, something happened. He had a dream. He met some being. Yeah, Abba stepped in and said, "Don't you touch my baby girl. We're gonna have problems if you do." Yeah, sexual checking. Pharaoh liked it, right? So he took her and he defended her. There's something about the story which is quite interesting. Number one, you don't hear Abraham interceding on behalf of Sarah, do you? No. So who was the one that got God's attention? Probably Sarah. Who was the one who was supposed to defend the honor of his bride? Abraham was supposed to, but who was the one who did it in the end? God did. Fast forward. This is what I'm talking about, one man Israel. People go down and they go into Israel, they go into Egypt. They get put into bondage. Who is the bride that later, or who became the bride later? Pharaoh saw a people and he says, I will make you mine. But he did a little bit more forcefully. He took Sarah, same way he took them into slavery. And who was the one who defended the bride? Abba steps in. So what happened with Abraham and Sarah is actually a picture of what happened with Israel as a nation. It is not a coincidence that we look at Yeshua and Joseph and Miriam and they go down into Egypt. He says, out of Egypt I called my son. He came out. We knew he was talking about Yeshua, but we also understand that he was talking about Yeshua. And as they came out, who was the one that was going to defend the bride of Yeshua? Abba has to do it again. Are you guys with me? Alright? That should be exciting. Or you're just completely confused. I don't know. Okay? So as we get to this, we look at here's the vine and we are the branches. Okay? And what is about the relationship with the vine and the branches that make this whole thing work?
The branches are the ones that bear the fruit. Vine supports the branches.
Right. So it comes up and the branches and the vine basically work together to kind of lift everything off the ground. And if we are the branches and he is the vine, he says, you will not do anything without me, right? That's the paraphrase version. Okay? There is no way you are going to bear fruit without him. Why? Because he's the very thing that keeps you off the ground.
All the nutrients is coming from.
All the nutrients, all the strength, everything else. If you had a week like ours, when you crashed into Shabbat, you were like, I'm not going to worry about anything for the next 24 hours because God's got this. You were being a big person and you tried this responsibility thing for a whole 6 days and you decided it wasn't for you. Okay? Coming to Shabbat, you switch off your brain and you're like, that's it, I can't do this. And he's like, welcome my son, and ever sit down at Daddy's table and we can discuss this. He's the one that's going to lift you up. He's the one that's going to sustain you. What, again, if Yah is perfect, if he's busy shouting out, what was the guy's name again?
I forget.
No, the one who's shouting this to them, he's giving the parable. Yotam, Yah is perfect. Yotam is busy shouting this out, and he says, as a nation, you were supposed to be pleasing to God and man. As a nation, you were supposed to be a sweet smell, you're supposed to be Torah and life. As a nation, you're supposed to be abundant, you're supposed to bring joy. What are you bringing? You want your own kingdom. So who's the one that comes up? This is the one that wins. Okay, as soon as I find my place, we'll read about this. Okay, finally all the trees said to the thorn bush, you come and rule over us. And the thorn bush replied, if you really make me king over you, then come and take shelter in my shade. Come underneath, I will be your covering, I will be your refuge. How many of you have tried to sit underneath the thorn bush? Good idea, bad idea? Right? Why is it a bad idea?
I just had something else. Kind of, it's a bit ironic.
Right.
All that, and Christ is one thorn crown.
Well, that's the problem with getting up underneath the thorn bush. You end up with a crown of thorns, right? Okay? You've got all these things sticking down at you. It's going from all different sides, all different angles. It's not necessarily a tree like an acacia. Okay? It is a thorn bush. How do you take shelter underneath the bush? This is not a good idea. Okay? You are the one going to end up scratched, and it doesn't have that much foliage with those normally. Okay? You don't get a lot of shade on this, so you're not going to be covered. Compare that to the fig tree. Compare that to the olive tree. Compare that to the vine. Next, I've got an assignment for you. We've got a little olive tree over there on the right hand side. Break off a piece for me about that big. With the leaves, yeah? Okay. He says, if you really make me king over you, then come and take shelter in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the thorn bush and burn down the cedars of the Lebanon. Alright, so tall cedars are people that are standing generally upright. Here's the point. Have you been honest and straightforward in making Abimelech king? Have you been fair with Jerubbaal and his household and treated him as he deserves? My father fought on your behalf, risking his life and rescuing you from the power of Midian. And now you are rebelling against my father's household. You have killed his 70 sons on a single stone and made Abimelech the son of a slave girl king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. I say this, if you are dealing honestly and righteously with Jeroboam and his household today, then may you enjoy Abimelech and may he enjoy you. Interesting that he's already pointed to him as a thorn bush. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and burn up the men of Shechem and Bet Millo, and let fire come out from the men of Shechem and Bet Millo and burn up Abimelech. Then Yotam fled, making his way to Be'er, and he lived there for fear of Abimelech, his brother. What does Be'er mean? Be'er Sheva. It's either a well or an oath. Again, he's sitting there on top of Gerizim. It will probably lead us more to the fact of a covenant promise that you would have forgotten. Abimelech was king over Israel for 3 years. God sent a spirit of discord between Abimelech and the king of the men of Shechem. So in this parable, he prophesies, and here after 3 years it starts to come true. Sound familiar? Yes? No? But the number 3, he's talking about the house of Israel. Destroy this temple and it? Is it not a symbol of God dwelling with them? Remember, it's about the numbers. It's about the pictures. So the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. This came out so that the crime against the 70 sons of Jeroboam might be avenged. And the responsibility for the bloody death be placed on Abimelech, their brother, who murdered them, on the men of Shechem who helped to kill his brothers. Okay, let's put it like that. Before we move on with all this. Okay, this is a branch of an olive tree. Alright? I'm going to pass this around, but what first thing you'll notice is that it's actually got 2 different colors in it. Okay, you've got a darker pigment green on top, and then you've got a lighter pigment at the bottom. Okay? So, this tree enters another story back in Torah. Before Abraham, there was a man called Noah. Noah sent 2 different types of birds to go out and go out and test to see if the water had dried up. The second one was a dove, and it came back with an olive. Why an olive? Are olive trees generally tall or short? Very short. Okay? It says, thus he knew, okay, that it was nearly dry. Right? But there's something very interesting that we were taught by a lovely Israeli woman called Sarah at a place called near Kedolim. Is that when you look at this, this is actually a symbol of the storm. You see our rabbis. I just love it. Is that when you take it and you whirl it around in your hand, this one doesn't look very nice. Let's see if we can make sense of it. If you whirl it around in between your fingers, if you look very quickly in the center, you will see white dot, white dot, white dot, white dot, white dot. Sign of the storm. Okay? So this becomes a symbol of what Noah had to go through before God would be able to bring the Mashiach on the fruit, okay, of the anointed one, and also lift up the nation of Israel. What does the dove represent? Generally peace, but we see it as a picture of the Ruach HaKodesh as well. So through the Ruach HaKodesh it will bring peace, and it descended on the anointed one, which will then set you apart and become like him. Amen? It's a cool little thing we do in Israel every now and again. Alright, where was that? Verse 25. So the men of Shechem sent out to ambush him on the mountaintops. They robbed everyone who went past, and Abimelech was told about it. Gaal, the son of a slave. Interesting. Who else was son of a slave? Abimelech. Okay, except he had Gideon. So slightly different context. What does Gaal mean? Loathsome. Someone that is loathsome. Okay, It's interesting, it sounds very close to Go'el. Go'el means redeemer. Kinsman redeemer. And that's what we use. We use silver to redeem. But this one is, instead of bringing it, you actually bring something loathsome in its place. The son of the slave came with his brothers and went to Shechem, and the men of Shechem put their trust in him, and went out into the field, gathered their grapes, and pressed their juice out of them, and they held a feast, and went into the house of their God to eat and drink. And there they insulted Abimelech. That which they used to institute the one as king, they're back in the same place instituting another as king. Gaal, the son of the slave, said, who is Abimelech? Think of the contrast with Shechem. Why should we serve Abimelech? Isn't he the son of Yerubbaal? Isn't Zephul his officer? Serve the men of Hamor, those are the original guys in Shechem. I think it's Genesis 33. The father of Shechem. Why should we serve Abimelech? If I were in control of this people, I'd get rid of Abimelech. Then addressing his words to Abimelech, he said, come out and fight. I don't care if you make your army even larger. When Zephul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaal, the son of the slave, he was enraged. So, where does let's just clarify quickly. Zephul, where does he rule, in a sense? In Shechem, okay? Right, and what does Zephul mean? He's exalted, right? He was lifted up by who? Who put him into position, you think? Very likely it could be Abimelech. Okay? So it doesn't say for sure, but if he is loyal to Abimelech, he's not against this rebellion going against him. He actually sends words to him, so it leads me to think that he was probably have some sort of allegiance with him. He was enraged. Verse 31, he sent messages to Abimelech in Torah. Your Bible might say secretly or privately with this message. Gaal, the son of the slave, and his brothers have come to Shechem, and they're inciting the city against you. You and the men with you should come up now at night and lie in wait in the field. In the morning, get up early, as soon as the sun rises, attack the city. Then when Gaal and the men with him come out to fight you, do whatever you can to them. Alright, so come march through the night, get you nice and early. Sound familiar? Yeah, before, not so much Jericho, it wasn't a whole night thing. But remember, Gideon would march out the whole night. You'll see other guys like Saul marching out the whole night, and Gideon marched the whole night, except he waited, he attacked them that night. But we see this whole thing. Come down quickly, it's a problem. Abimelech and all the men with them came up at night and lay in wait against Shechem in 4 groups. What does 4 represent normally? You there, Van, only the name. Okay, but again, we're talking about a counterfeit here. Gaal, the son of slave, went out and stationed himself at the entrance of the city gate. Then Abimelech and his men rose from their ambush. When Gaal saw them, he said to Zephul, look, there are men coming down from the mountaintop. Zephul answered, you're seeing shadows on the mountains as if it were men. Gaal said again, look, there are men coming down from the main hill in the land, and the one group is coming on the road from the fortune teller's oak. Zephul said to him, where is your mouth now? You said, who is Abimelech? Why should we serve them? Aren't these the people you despise? Go out and fight them. So Zephul sets him up. They could have pulled everybody in. They could have shut the gates. They could have fortified him, but he gave Abimelech some more time to get closer to the city. So as light was coming in, Gaal started to recognize that it was men, not just shadows. So Gaal went out, leading the men of Shechem, and fought Abimelech. But Abimelech gave chase, and Gaal took flight. Many fell wounded, strewn all along the way to the city gate. So what does that tell you? Towards the city gate.
He was running away from the fight.
Right. Generally, when you look at the people, any archaeological mound that you normally go to is a hill that looks like that. Okay? We call it a tell. So everywhere in it, you will see in signs in English that say Tel Chatzor, Tel Jericho, Tel. That's basically a word for an archaeological mound. Basically, people rebuilt destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt, creating layers of civilization normally in the same place. They did this for a number of reasons. Maybe there was water there, maybe it was on a main road, maybe the hill was really high, so it was a good fortification, but somehow they still not managed to be overcome. So the guys thought, well, if I make a fortification better than the last guy, maybe my city will last longer. Okay? But when you walk through these tells, the hardest part is getting up to the actual big site. Okay? And they tell you a whole bunch of stuff about how the people live in the city. The problem is that everybody live in the city. No, that's how the rich people lived. Where was everybody else? Outside in the fields. Okay, so they said we will work the land and we will bring in our stores and we will sell it here and we will look after it. But if there is trouble, you ring the bell or you sound the shofar or you start screaming and jumping up and down. Do whatever you need to do so that we can pack up and we can come in and then we can hold out the siege. And the stores are full from the guys outside of the city. Okay? The term on the outskirts of the city comes from this. Because the tell actually looks like a skirt that is out, and the settlements were actually out here in the fields, looking after the crops. Okay? So the wealthy people were there. People were still running up to get to the city gate, which is normally up here. They might have went down, but some of the people that were coming from back who didn't even see the attackers coming were probably weren't given enough time to go back up and hide and take on the siege itself. He never bolted the walls, he went out to meet them. That's just silly. I can stand on the top and shoot arrows all day long. Why would I fight you in combat? On an equal playing field. Something was not set up right here, or his arrogance drove him into a battle he could not win. I always do this. Verse 41. Thank you. Then Abimelech took up residence in Arumah, and Zeph drove out Gaal and his brothers, so that they could not live in Shechem. But the very next day, the people went out into the field. They obviously thought, that's it. They're not here anymore, we can carry on. And Abimelech was told about it. He took his men, divided them up into 3 groups, and he lay in wait in the field. Sound familiar? Gideon? When he saw the people going out into the city, he came out hiding and he slaughtered them. Abimelech and his group rushed forward and occupied his entrance to the city gate, while the other 2 groups attacked all those in the field and killed them. Abimelech fought against the city all that day, captured it, killed its people, destroyed its buildings, and sowed its land with salt. Interesting choice. Why salt?
So you've killed the land, right? And nothing else is broken.
Right. You are basically sending them out into famine. That's going to destroy all your crops. You're coming out into the field. You don't know what you've got in your stores. Obviously not much if you have to come out into the fields. And we're going to put this all out there. Number 1. Number 2, what else is salt used for? Preserving. What should be preserving Shechem? Remember, it was all about covenant. It was always all about covenant. Okay? Salt also represented loyalty. Okay? Remember loyalty? How do I get to loyalty?
Salt was paid, salt.
No, not the soldiers. If you look at the Bedouin. Wedding. Okay? The Bedouin, the Arabs today that are still nomadic, that move around in Israel, even today, before a bride and a groom touch hands, they will take salt from the Dead Sea, they will coat them completely, and their first touch will be between salt. God puts it this way, He says to the Levites, He says, if you minister to me and you look after my people and do all those wonderful things, that's His paraphrase version, if you do that, I will take care of you. It will be a covenant of salt between you and I. If you are loyal to me, I will feed you. I will look after you. You belong to me. You're something that is kadosh, you're something that's sanctified and set apart to me, you're my responsibility. I need you to focus on my people to make sure they keep on coming up and they worship me, they keep on bringing it. And as they come in worship, they bring tithes and offerings and first fruits and all those things. And then out of that, you will receive a portion and you will eat. If people don't come up, you starve. It's an interesting picture. As people who are out there trying to come up to a relationship with God, you're the one meeting them at the gate. Out of their heart will come gifts for Him. If I get stuck and I create a barrier between the two, if I push people away instead of bring people in, is God going to stop? No. That person is going to go away from God, he's going to be hurt, and he's not going to know what to do. And you're the one who is supposed to reflect Him, and you're the one who takes the money. Your reflection will bring people in or chase people away. For the Levites, it was a very real problem. Okay? Didn't need food. Salt also represents cleansing. Okay? Put salt in the wound to clean it out. So again, he might have gone, yeah, no one crops, and God's saying, you've forgotten about my loyalty, you forgot about my word that was supposed to preserve you, and you definitely are going to cleanse this land. I'm going to pull you out because you have lost all sense of who I was, and you made a covenant with Baal. The temple is called Baal, breathe covenant with Baal, and you've forgotten me. So don't enjoy the fields because that's my lunch that was me to you. You guys with me? Alright, let me read it. Okay. Thank you. Verse 46. When all the men in the fortress of Shechem heard about this, they took refuge in the stronghold of the temple Al-Beit. So, they've come up, they've broken the gates down, they're sowing the field with salt. Where's the last place we hide? Al-Beit. What does Al-Beit mean? Not Shechem's God. Al means God. In this case, little g. Beit. Never mistaken. Beit Chadashah. Beit Milah. Covenant. Right. Okay? Just FYI. You might meet one or two people that will tell you, and you will read many articles that will tell you that the God of the Hebrews is actually an offshoot of the Canaanite deity called El. El was the father figure, the main patriarch of the Parthenon of Canaanite different gods. You know what I mean? Lots of different ones, like the Greeks. And they will say, they called him El, you call him El, it's all the same God. Please don't come here with this one story. Your entire story has been developed, it doesn't exist. You're worshipping a Canaanite deity. That is exactly how Satan wants you to think, because it will take you, leave your faith over there, because everything you see and everything you'll read will tell you that there was a Canaanite god called El. What they don't tell you is where did the Canaanites get the name from. Who was Canaan? Grandson of Noah. You think Noah knew who El was? Yeah, you get a pretty good idea. Right? Do you think he might have referenced him as El a few times, and his little grandson might have says, my boy, El saved us. We were on that boat forever. You don't understand. The boat is still over there, but I don't want to see it anymore. But except Canaan took a title or a name of God. Remember, when you look at the names, it's all about relationship, right? El comes from two Hebrew letters, an Aleph and a Lamed, which mean, if I break it down into value, strength of the shepherd. Strong shepherd, strong leader, strong shepherd. Okay, the first shepherd is what that title means. We translate it as God. Yeshua himself, I am the good shepherd. Psalm 23. And so we go on. It is a perversion of truth. Okay? Haman knew the name. He knew the title El. And here we see them worshiping him, but again, we make it fit what we want. The God of the covenant should have been through Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and now we see the Shechemites using it and perverting it to do whatever they want. Okay. So they hide behind their God. The last stand, He will save us. But remember, why would... No, before I get there. Every time, well, 99% of the time is a battle. You need to understand that when these guys go into battle, they understand that their God is fighting against this God. The outcome is literally decided in the heavens. It's got nothing to do with what happens on earth. Okay? So we're going to go hide behind it, except we have your time with a prophecy that is being fulfilled now, in our time, in this time. And the last line of defense that we have is we have a covenant-keeping God. Except your God doesn't exist. Wrong God, wrong covenant. Okay, so we take refuge in Him. Abimelech was told that all the men from Shechem fortress had gathered there, so he led all his men up to Mount Salmon, where he took the axe in his hand, cut a branch off a tree, and laid it on his shoulder. Then he said to those with him, "Quick, do just as you saw me do." And they all did likewise, each man cutting off a branch, and they followed Abimelech. They put the branches up against the stronghold, they set it on fire and burned down the stronghold, so that all the people from the Shechem fortress died, about 1,000 men and women. Then Abimelech went to Tebet, set up a camp against Tebet and captured it. But there was a fortified tower inside of it, and all the men and women took refuge in it. Everyone in the city, they shut themselves inside and went out onto the roof of the tower. However, when Abimelech approached the tower, he attacked it, and he came up close to the tower's door in order to burn it down. A woman dropped an upper millstone on Abimelech's head, cracking his skull. Okay, so two things. He burns everything down. Sorry, Mom, just give me a second. He burns everything down. Alright? Purging idolatry. Atoning for the blood of the Lamb. Right? They have no problem taking money from that God to pay for the death of sin. Okay? God allows this to happen. He says, if this is what you're going to do and this is what you're going to understand, this is how we're going to save you later. And he takes him to it, and again he pushes out and he goes to another place and he says, Abimelech says, you come against me, except the prophecy had two parts. He will deal with Shechem, there will be division. Abimelech will take out Shechem, and once that's been taken out, Abimelech is going to be dealt with. Right? He hasn't focused on that. He gets too close to the fortification. What type of a commander goes walking right up to the fortification? That's silly. He had no fear. He was quite arrogant. Mark, you want to say something, right?
Yeah, I have a question. You know how 1,000 men and women died? Children?
Doesn't mention. Remember, the Hebrew might have said Anashim, which meant people. Okay, so it might not mention it as per se, but it also could just be a mention of the people of Shechem. So in the translation, they might have put, you'll have to go and check, men and women as a translation instead of men, women, and children. Okay, it just depends on it. The Hebraic term can mean all three, mean one, or just one. Okay? You with me? Right? Deep? You're just resting on the... Okay, cool. Alright, so she sends a millstone. Millstone? Where did I tell you about a millstone?
You press it right seeds of oil.
There we are. That which will honor God. And the lady goes, enough of you. And someone managed to clap him on the head. Now, if you've ever seen the millstone, this should be something. I kid you not. I've stood next to ones who were about this high, probably about this wide, and they need a donkey just to get it to work. The smallest one I've seen, if I put it up on the table, is probably about that big. It's probably about that big. So the fact that it didn't squish him completely is near miraculous. Okay? While we're there, there's a New Testament reference for Muslim. Wow. If you cause the least of these to stumble, then that can be young children, that can be young believers. If you cause the least of these to stumble, it is better for you to take a millstone, put it around your neck and go jump into the sea. Now just from a practical point of view, number one, you're not going to be able to pick it up and go put yourself in the sea. Number two, if it's tied around you, you ain't coming back up again. Number three, the sea represented what? The abyss. Something dark. It represented death. And when you go to a mikvah, baptism, right? You die, you come up, new life. With a millstone, there's no coming back. They just did. Okay? I say that because the creator of all things, when he squeezed himself into time and space and came here and he walked on earth as a man, he said, don't mess with the little ones or else this will be better for you than to stand and face him. If you're faced with someone who is an immature or a new believer, don't get your knowledge, don't let your knowledge get the better of you when you want to run up and go, I want to tell you 15 million truths and why you have to do it this way and that way and all the rest of it, when all they're trying to understand the difference between a Torah and a Tanakh. Guys, we have to understand, sometimes babies need milk. If I had to pick Ezra up here or take a Leah and I put it over here and I go, okay, we're going to give Nami's time and I give her a big T-bone steak. And I say, this child is not leaving until she eats her food. Number one, parents over there are going to beat me. Number two, baby's going to be very cranky. And if I carry on pushing my own way, what's going to happen to that baby? That's what Kalila, it will pass. Why? Because I'm giving it something that it cannot process. Even if I had to chop it up into little pieces and shove it down any baby's throat, they cannot handle it. So take some time. If you meet new people and all I want is milk, give them milk. You might know more. That's got nothing to do with you, that had everything to do with God. In time, they will grow, and then they will look at your food as it goes past. Every parent has seen this. You want to give it something else, and then it's looking at your steak and it's doing this. And then you start to recognize, okay, maybe it was a little piece of meat. And then they slowly start to grow and mature. Understand, we need to open up our eyes a little bit and start to understand. You might be 60 years old. The sad truth is we have people sitting in churches that are still at the milk stage. 60 years, 40 years, 30 years as believers, and yet they cannot produce, they cannot eat meat yet. Take the time. You've got to nurture them and you've got to bring them up. Okay? So, she takes the millstone, she rolls it off, and she manages to connect his noggin. Verse 54. He quickly called out to the young man holding his armor, draw your sword and finish me off, so that people won't say that a woman killed me. You know what I find interesting, you know? Be careful of defending your reputation so much that you forget what God thinks of you. Abimelech's main concern is that a girl killed him. How dare a valiant man of me die like that at the hands of a woman? But you ignore the fact that God already prophesied your demise 3 years ago. 3 years he waited for him to change. And he chose not to.
It's funny, in 2 Samuel, it actually says, and who killed Abimelech? Was it not the woman?
Yeah, it's like a millstone on his head. Wait, that's it, done. Doesn't matter how you died after that, you'll turn down. So the attendant ran him through and he died. When the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they all went back home. This is how God paid back Abimelech for the wrong he did to his father by murdering his 70 brothers. God also repaid the men of Shechem for all the wrong they had done on them came the curse of Yotam, the son of Yerubbaal. Right. You guys got any questions, any thoughts? We've got about 7 minutes on our watch. You're going to try chapter 10. It's like 10 verses or 13 verses. Alright, as long as you don't fall asleep on me, I gave you an option. Okay. After Abimelech, there arose to save Israel Tola the son of Pua, the son of Dodo, the son from the tribe of Issachar, who lived in Shamir in the hills of Ephraim. He judged Israel 23 years, and when he died, he was buried in Shamir. Great name. Tola means worm, son of Pua means a blast. Dodo comes from word Dodi, which means lovely. Issachar, he will bring a reward. He judged. There was no fighting in his life. Shamir means a sharp point. So if we were trying to break it down, instead of the worm of a man was, brought in a blast, he was loved, he brought a reward. The reward was no fighting. He was a sharp point. That's a minor judge. That's all we know about him. But he left his mark to the point where God thought it needed to be mentioned. 23 years, summed up in 3 verses. After him arose Yair from Gilad. He judged Israel 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode on 30 young donkeys. They owned 30 cities, which were called Chavot Yair to this day. They were in the territory of Gilad. When Yair died, he was buried in Tamon. It's like, wow. That's it. So Yair means he enlightened, or he enlightens, or the enlightener. Gilad is the hill of testimony. Tamon is the standing place. 30 sons, 30 donkeys, 30 cities. What does 30 represent? Okay, 30 pieces of silver for redemption. We could go there. Or we could break it up 3, representing Father, Son, and Ruach, as well as 10, 10, and 10. 3 covenants. Covenant, covenant, covenant. And this guy was all about covenant. What I found very interesting, this is just on a side note. If you look at Chavot Yair, Chavot Yair in 1 Kings 4 verse 13 was not 30 cities but 33. Each son rode on a donkey, and they all, in a sense, were sons of the enlightener. So let me break that out to you. Yeshua started his public ministry at the age of 30. He died when he was 33. He came as a king riding on a donkey. These were nomadic cities. He brought enlightenment. He brought as the hill of testimony of Mount Zion. And he came in, if he died in Canaan, it says standing place is a good representation. He died standing. But, use it, don't use it. Verse 6. Again, the people of Israel did what was evil from Adonai's perspective. They served the Baalim and the Ashtaroth, the god of Aram, the god of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, the gods of the Philistine. How many different gods do you meet? They abandoned Adonai and did not serve him. So the anger of Adonai blazed against Israel, and he handed them over to the Philistine and the people of Ammon. For 18 years, starting that year, they oppressed and persecuted all the people of Israel who lived beyond the Yarden, in the territory of the Amorim in Gilad. The people of Ammon also crossed the Yarden to fight Yehudah. Benjamin, Benjamin, and the house of Ephraim saw that Israel was greatly distressed. 18 years of judgment. 3 cycles of man, basically. Then the people of Israel cried to Adonai, "We have sinned against you by forsaking our God and serving the Baalim." Adonai said to the people of Israel, "I saved you from the Egyptians, the Amorim, the people of Ammon, the Philistines, didn't I? Likewise, when the people of Sidon, Amalek, and Moab oppressed you, you cried out to me and I rescued you from their power. Yet you abandoned me and served other gods. Therefore I will not rescue you anymore. Go and cry to the gods you chose. Let them rescue you when you're in trouble." If you don't learn the lesson, God extends the punishment. You choose how long you want to walk around that mountain. You choose how many years you want to walk in the wilderness. Sometimes God will put you into a difficult position. And he will test you. And he will squeeze you. And then he will bring you out at your request, only for you to make the same mistakes that got you into that position. If you don't change, you didn't make teshuvah. Listen to me. If there is no change, if you are still doing the same things you did when you were baptized, and I get it, it's difficult to be changed, it's difficult to grow. But the simple fact of the matter is, unless you give it up to God and ask Him to change you, not your circumstance, but to change you, nothing's going to happen. What's the point of me pulling out this much if you're just going to run back into it? Every day you have an opportunity to serve. Every day you've got an opportunity to change, to get better. Don't just sit back and say, this is the way I am, or this is the way it is. It's never going to change. It doesn't change because you don't change. If you think money is going to change you, it's not. Not the way God wants you to be changed. If you think your security, your safety, anything. Listen guys, people are ducking, leaving the country, going to New Zealand and doing all these wonderful things. And they're going to a place where they don't need God. Money is good, crime is low, everybody's happy. No one's safe. That could be the worst place for you. It could be your spiritual death and you wouldn't even realize it. We have a blessing in difficulty, in war, in oppression. You get to see what is worth fighting for. What is your true condition? And how you yourself can cry out to the Father so He can change you. You have that ruach, He'll honor it, He will change you. Make use of it. Grab hold of it. Hold on to the sit. Seek His face. Ask Him to say, I don't want to be like that anymore. Help me become something else. Unless He says to you like this, He says, you're trusting in other things and you think if I give you those things, then your situation will make you happier. No, you're broken. That will not make you happier. That's just going to distract you for another 3 months, and you're going to get yourself in a bigger pit, and then you're going to come and cry to me again. It's time to wake up and be honest with yourself. I don't know what this thing is. They got rid, the people of Israel said to Adonai, we have sinned. Treat us in whatever way seems good to you, but save us today, please. They got rid of the foreign gods who served Adonai, and he became troubled by Israel's misery. When you're sad, God's sad. If you make real teshuvah, you're really feeling the hiding that He gave you, then He comes in and He says, okay, let's go. Then the people of Ammon gathered together and set up camp in Gilead, while the people of Israel assembled and camped at Mizpah. The people, the chiefs of Gilead, said to each other, whoever leads the battle against the army of Ammon will be head over everyone living in Gilead. And at that point, there's a man called Yephah who's going to rise up. And we're not going to deal with him today. Any questions, any thoughts?